Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, drags, despicables, chumps, Neanderthal, semi-fascist, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right. So the holidays are behind us. New Year's was good.
New Year's was good. We had a good time. Went down. Yeah, it's really funny. It's like I went downstairs to visit my neighbor. Right, it's like 11:30. He's like, "Yeah, come down, hang out with me." Okay, so it gets to uh, 11:50, and I'm like, "Hey, 10 minutes." He goes, "Yeah." 5 minutes. Yeah. 45 seconds. Yeah, you don't care. There's no switching over, no watching the ball fall. It went past midnight. Yo, big deal. So it was pretty cool. It was like somebody who refused to take it seriously. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah. As I've posted many times, it's like, I don't even remember the last time I stayed up for it. I mean, it's kind of lost its luster for me. I don't know. I mean, it's now down to just my wife and myself, and doesn't seem as exciting. And as we get older, we're like, we'll just
wake up in the morning. It'll be a new year.
Yeah, just see you next year, guys. And everything like that. I mean, we were with some friends of ours from church who a little earlier in the evening and had a good time. The guy who invited us is a very conservative young lawyer. He's got four kids now, and so he apparently when they invited us, I think his wife here they told my wife, this is like, come and join us. We've got some other fellow patriots coming over, and
Good, excellent.
yeah. So it's good. I mean, a little politics in there, but we were just having not really met this family before. It was a chance to kind of get to know them a little bit anyway, and just I guess we say Happy New Year, but even though we left around by I don't know 8 o'clock or whatever it was, that was it. I'm pretty sure I was in bed by 9. I'm just like, and I keep thinking about. I think because our neighborhood has also grown a little older. I mean, we don't have as many young kids in there. There's still some school-aged children, that are anywhere from K through 12 in there. But I think as the years have gone by, as those other kids and families have grown up or moved out, we don't hear like the illegal firecrackers or a lot of the extra noise anymore. It's like,
we were talking about that too. I didn't hear any fireworks at midnight. And
yeah,
like, it's been an absolute Beirut here in the past, right?
yeah,
This year it just kind of went by. So
yeah. So that's probably good for pets, because I don't think
yeah, pets
dogs,
don't like it.
yeah, they don't like those kind of things that get startled by that stuff. So probably a good thing in the end. I do think about staying up as a kid though, when the thing was is that when midnight hit, my mom was like, okay, let's take the pots and the pans that are here by the door and bang them. And I'm thinking like, man, that's really old school now.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's good. I know we had a good holiday. I know we talked last week after Christmas, and so everybody got back safe and sound. Does well, public schools back in Virginia,
Yes.
and
Yeah, we were back yesterday.
yeah, and MK goes back to school soon,
She's
or
not until like the 16th or something.
okay.
It's a little while
Yeah.
away for her.
Yeah, because I don't know, I don't know the Maryland schedule anymore. But I mean, in Maryland it was always like the middle of January, and then you'd start about, and then you'd have the middle of August was the fall semester. I don't know if any of those things are still true anymore.
That's right. That could well be.
That may be the best comment. Okay, now it's only a new year, but that may have to
so far.
go up as the best comment of the year. Thank you, John. He knows you.
Yeah, from way back.
From way back. All right. So news-wise, I mean, weather, not so far so good. I keep crossing my fingers. It's like, we've hit early January. We still got a couple months to go thereabouts, but no appreciable snow or anything like that. I want to get through this with as little snow as possible.
Could be something this weekend. They're saying there's a nor'easter lining up, and it's unclear whether we'll get rain or snow. I think for those of you who live around here, this will be a big tell. If we get snow, we're in for a snowy winter. If we get rain, we might get our 3 or 4 inches some point in the game, but we're not going to be. It's not going to be a heavy snow year. But all the weather predictors said this year will be closer to average, what we think of as an average year, because it's been way below average the last few years.
Yeah, you sooner or later the odds, they're going to catch up with you, right? I mean, it's
right.
So we're expecting something sometime, but the older I get, the less I push that off until long after I'm not on this earth or something like that. To just let somebody else know.
But I moved to Reston 9 years ago. Reston's a little farther west. It's a little higher than the city. It's about 420 feet up or so. So I was thinking, we would get a little more winter weather here. But in the time we've been here, there have been a number of storms where we got little or nothing, and St. Mary's County, Southern Maryland, got buried. Right? There's been these southern storms that didn't hit us. So it's sort of, instead of getting us more snow, it's gotten us less snow.
Yeah, if it snows this weekend, it really won't bother me too much, as long as it takes place after I leave town on Friday and disappears by the time I get back on Tuesday.
There you go.
What happens in between, I'm not going to be that concerned about. But just if as long as it's not here when I leave and not here when I get back, I'll be fine.
We're permitted to have it.
Yeah, you guys can have it. I would hope, I'll be in Indiana, and hopefully, I haven't even checked the weather forecast, but hopefully it's good there. That was the other thing too, is that with our grandkids and between birthdays and things like that, stuff that's happened over the years, is that we have grandkids that are born in the first 2-3 months of the year. When my daughter was living in Iowa, and when the baby was born, going out to Iowa in January and February and stuff like that, cold, usually snow, it's just miserable. Indiana, I mean, where they are in Southwest Indiana, I mean, the weather has a tendency to kind of mimic ours. I mean,
yeah,
they get the same weather a lot of times we get. It's hot and muggy in the summer, so there's a lot of similarities there. So we had a couple of choices to travel. At first, we had booked flights on Southwest to do our Louisville excursion, fly from BWI to Louisville, rent a car, and drive the last 2 hours. But then American, which flies into Evansville, I guess they basically had, for not a whole lot of miles, a chance to go back, to do a round trip for very little miles. So my wife's like, yeah, think about it this way. And it's like, we can go to Evansville, and we can rent the car there, but we don't have to do the 2-hour driving. We don't have, in case whatever weather is on, either day, while we're, coming and going. And so, yeah, so I think that, that's what we've opted for. It's just, we'll fly into there. It'll take a little longer because instead of taking a direct flight to Louisville, we got to fly to Charlotte, wait around, and then fly into Evansville. But it gets us there. I don't know. Maybe there's a 2-hour difference or something like that in terms of arrival, but that'll be fine.
Yeah.
And if the weather was a little foul, it'll probably be better for us in the long run, and all that. But yeah, I'm hoping that their weather is going to be in the 40s. It'd be that's livable, doable,
yeah,
and all that stuff. All right, news-wise, stuff still happening in Israel. There was, they struck down, they got one of the participants, Hamas leaders, in the October 7th attack. So Israel's still on the offensive with that. We're still getting hostage reports about people who have died. Some of the hostages, I haven't actually checked what the last hostage count was, in terms of how many hostages Hamas is still holding.
It's like 130 or so, a little less than 130, high 120s. Some of them may be dead, we don't really know. And they're holding on to the women because they did stuff to the women that they can't have them out talking about. So that's part of that. They're also, like you said, they killed one of the leaders. They're you see people talk about, oh, they're indiscriminate, this and that, and not really, right? It's pretty surgical what they're doing and how they're doing it. And Hamas, they had a day, I think, in the last week when they did not shoot any rockets into Israel for the first time. So, IDF put out something that says, you can say what you want, but what we're doing is working. We're wearing them down where they can't hurt us anymore. And I think people don't understand that. It's like, this was not a one-off thing for the Palestinians, right? The Hamas, it wasn't just October 7th. They've been doing this stuff every day since October 7th. So, this is a war that they started, that they brought to Israel. So, when you hear people say, oh, Israel's doing too much to retaliate, it's like, stop messing with them. Stop attacking them. Stop shooting bombs at them and so forth. Just see what happens, right? And because that's what they're doing, is they're retaliating for acts of aggression.
Yeah, I mean, return the innocent people, hostages that you took.
Right. Stop
firing rockets at Israel, and then Israel will stop, retaliating, coming back and trying to do that. This is something that continues to, get lost in all the narratives. This Israel has been made out to be the bad guy in all of this, but yet as we have said time and time again on this show, Israel was attacked. Hello.
Right.
Are you're not going to sit on your hands while you're attacked, and while thousands of your people got innocently killed, and then they took hundreds of people hostage, innocent people hostage on top of that. I don't know how more plain, more clear it should be as to Israel's right to do this.
And the other thing is like, when you hear the people talking about this, it's like, okay, what do you want Israel to do? What would be the outcome where you would say, okay, Israel handled this like I want it handled? So is it just pack up and leave, abandon their home and their country that they built into this, force of commerce and innovation, right? Because it doesn't seem like anything else would satisfy them, right? They are not going to accept a Jewish state. And until you do, there's not really anything to negotiate, right? And of course, Biden is back to talking about the two-state solution and this and that and the other. They don't want to. Hamas does not want a two-state solution, right? And if you got rid of Hamas, one of the things is have an election, get somebody else in power. That person's not going to, they're not going to, no one is going to campaign in the West Bank or in Gaza on let's have a two-state solution. Not going to do it, right? They're going to campaign on annihilate Israel, finish the job, attack again. So, I don't know what you expect, what we expect Israel to do, right? Other than, respond, defend itself, and, surgically take this out, right? Yeah, I don't really get the complaint.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obvious that Hamas. I mean, they're militant, they're leftist. I mean, they're violent. They're not reasonable people. They are not looking. They're not really looking for peace. They want Jews annihilated, and they want the whole thing. They want the whole pot.
There's not a negotiating position there that anyone could take.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing is like it's starting to it's a big problem for the Democrats. People don't realize this, but like within the Democratic Party, you have, as Montgomery County, a lot of Jews with a lot of money who spend it on politics, right? Who's concerned about public policy, right? And most of their money goes to Democrats. And you have these, radical Hamas people who are shutting down the highways to, the airports over the holidays and all this stuff, right? How do they exist under the same tent? And whatever Biden does, right, they're all just aghast. Those people are just aghast at Biden for sending aid to Israel, right? He keeps sending it under the number where he has to get approved by Congress, just pushing aid out to them, right? And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you helping them, right? So they're kind of in a box on this. They don't, there's not an easy way out for the Democrats because large blocks of their party oppose each other on this.
Yeah, no, I mean it has changed a lot. I mean, supporting Israel has not been as unpopular as it is today with a lot of these Democrat constituency. The far left has really, they've taken over, and they want more. They don't, they're they've bought everything up about Hamas being the victim here instead of the aggressor, and so it has boxed the Democrats in. That's even boxed, I think, some of the Jewish Democrats in terms of they have this problem. Of course, you've got AOC and others, who have now, now that we know that Jesus was a Palestinian.
That was an unusual formulation there, I will just say.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, okay, he's like,
okay, so that's a good point. Like, a lot of people say that, how can the Jews support Democrats? Okay, and the reason for that, in the main, it's not true of everyone, but is, the Jews have rightly seen themselves as a minority, right? And often a persecuted minority. Where do they get that crazy idea, right? And they see the Democrats as the party of persecuted minorities. It tries to help persecuted minorities. So, and the tie is deep, right? And they keep thinking if they stay with it and pour in a little more money, it will come back to being sensible. But at this point, it's not going to be sensible.
Yeah, I mean, and it's long ingrained. I mean, this is something. Yeah. This is not something that's a 10-year or 20-year. This is something that goes back a long time.
Long way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm 64. I mean, it's been that way all my life, right? And it was that way before that. So it takes a while. It can take generations before other young Jews start to switch and say, we're going to take a more middle of the road or conservative position on things. And we've seen that. We've seen some of that.
You're seeing some of that happen, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing it because it's like some of this stuff, it's pretty cut and dry that they're not welcome in their party, right? That, I don't know what you do about it if the people in your party despise you and want you dead. How long can you stay around in that party, right?
Right. I mean, and look, I mean, the Democrats, like you said, I mean, the persecuted minorities, I mean, they have always been kind of looked at as the champions of this. So they attract, they've attracted long held support from the Black community. They've had, they've controlled a pretty good percentage of the Hispanic community, and all of this stuff. Now, a lot of that, we've talked about this a little bit too, is that, the Black community and the Hispanic community, their support for the Democrats has eroded tremendously, right?
Trump looks like he can win Hispanics, get about 25 to 30% of Black vote, and under 35, he's now ahead. So younger, that's three big voting blocks that the Democrats always count on. That as of right now, Trump, will do better than any recent Republican candidate.
Yeah, so that there's trouble on those fronts for the Democrats all the way around.
This is not the only one of these things. The other one is immigration. Okay, so on one side it's let everybody in, and Trump was so cruel to the immigrants and this and that and the other. The other side is these cities that are getting 2,000, 5,000 people a month dropped off on their doorstep, right? And they don't know what to do with them. And Denver's going to give them 3 months rent and a hotel or an apartment or whatever. There's all this craziness going on over cities trying to manage the immigration debacle, right? It's being brought to their doorstep, and they're like, wait, we don't have any of this. Well, you know what? Who else doesn't have the means to do it? Eagle Pass, Texas, right? But that's who you're asking to do it. You're saying it's not our job, it's theirs. Well, you guys, we're a sanctuary city, right? We're not going to let there be any, persecution of these people in our city, right? We're going to protect all that. Okay, well, now you're going to spend, I think, Denver, I think I read that 10% of the city budget is going to go to housing and feeding illegal immigrants who were brought there, from the border by Greg Abbott or whoever, right? So now this, they're like, hey, Biden administration, you got to fix this. You got to do something about the border. So that's another conflict that they really cannot, how does Eric Adams, go to bat for Joe Biden, right? How does, Mayor Wu, you saw her on TV, those progressive people in the country yesterday saying, we're trying to prepare, we're working with the state, but we're totally overwhelmed. Okay. Why are you totally overwhelmed? And Boston really has not been a prime target of this. Well, she's totally overwhelmed by, ancillary activity. She's not been a focus. So, they have those two problems, and I don't know how they manage them. I don't know how they get to the bottom of that by November.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing here that, as we talk about that, because I think for these liberal cities, in these liberal areas, the immigration issue didn't really touch them because it was far away. This was going to be Texas's problem or Arizona's problem, maybe even New Mexico's problem, whatever, California's problem, that kind of a thing, So so they.
That's the thing I got thinking about last night. The dog that doesn't bark. How is California? Because when they dole out congressional seats, it's who lives there. It's not who's citizen, right? So all you got to do is prove they live there, right? How does a border state like California keep losing representation in Congress? How does they lost 250,000 people last year, about 190,000 the people before. People are streaming out of Colorado. How does California, how does California's population keep going down when it's a border state? What's going on there?
Yeah, that makes you wonder. I mean, I think they still have a net, out migration. It's slowed down since the last year or so, but they're still losing people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's an excellent point. It's like for a state that has had pretty open arms on immigrants, just come on in, that if they get all those people, the core base of the real core tax base is leaving, right? Being replaced by these guys, and it's still not enough.
Public charges. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, but
math ain't mathing on that one, man.
Well, there's the thing. So we have these cities that are thousands of miles away from the border. I mean, I don't know how much money Texas has spent shipping these people off. I know it's not cheap to do. It's
not cheap, but it's cheaper than the alternative.
But I think it's been an interesting lesson on how this works, because all of those people, all these liberal mayors and governors and whatnot, they really didn't push much about fixing the immigration problem, despite the fact that we have a broken immigration system. Now they're starting to think like, well, I can see we have a problem because I've got all these people and I don't know what to do with them. We don't have the resources to handle this, and we don't know how to deal with this. And they're trying to find ways of preventing the buses and things like that from coming in and things like this. And there's always going to be a workaround, and they found a workaround to that, which was pretty funny. So I give Greg Abbott a lot of credit for really forcing these guys to face the issue. Especially with when you have Joe Biden in office, and he had Kamala Harris supposedly was going to be like the immigration czar, right?
Right. And literally nothing happened there. It would be a good FOIA project to say, okay, FOIA everything that Kamala has done about the border, like her border czar role. Give me every document on that. Nothing responsive.
Well, I can see it. After the initial failure, right? I mean, where nothing was happening. Have this meeting with Mexico's president or whatever, do all this stuff, and then nothing, and the situation never got resolved. I mean, we still have these people coming over. I don't know that I've heard anything from the administration about her role. It's like at this at all. It's like this has been just basically buried and pushed aside, particularly in election year, because you don't want to remind people. By the way, you remember, when we took office, we put her in charge of that because we thought she'd do a good job there, and it's like,
right. You can't remind people. That's right.
It's not working, and I don't know what the answer is. These cities, they're under pressure. But it's typical of like the Chicago mayor is just he's just a horrid person. I mean,
Yeah.
the fault lies with everybody but him, right?
Right.
It's like
That's right.
he has nothing to do with anything that's going wrong in that city and how to handle this particular issue either. It's it's point fingers and just avoid taking any kind of responsibility or blame.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he could have imagined what an effect he has had on this debate and all that. And I think a lot.
He did it with this in mind to like make the whole country see the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think
but it really has, and it's like you see these man on the street interviews in Chicago, and these people are like, we're voting for Trump. These people have failed us. They don't care about us. They're giving the help we need to people that snuck across the border. And that's their coalition. That's the heart of their coalition. And what's going to happen is, Trump's not going to win Chicago, right? He's not going to win Philly. But, you can remember like in 2012, right? Romney was running against Obama. There were precincts in Philly that were like 5,100 votes for Obama, none for Romney, 5,200 to 2.
Yeah.
2 votes. 1, 2. So, but you're not going to have that. You're going to have, 75-25, right? And that's you keep cutting down those margins in the cities. The rest of Pennsylvania, you get out of Pittsburgh and the heart of Pittsburgh and Philly, the Republicans, it's a Republican state. It's a straight up hard red state. So if you tamp down the margins in the cities, you can do that. The other thing is that puts a place like Virginia in play, right? You have people wanting these things, the basic government functions cleaned up, and the people in charge aren't doing it.
Yeah, and if the cities are now diverting their budgets to all these illegals, and that means services aren't being rendered to other people. Yeah, that's why you're going to have a lot of these people like, wait a minute here. It's like, what happened here? Either they're going to, and if they're not going to, and if they don't really trim the services back to their citizens, then they're going to have to raise taxes, and that's not going to sit well either.
Right.
So they've got a huge problem to try to resolve, and like by November, they're not going to figure this out. They're not going to get this fixed.
Right. So that's the other thing is like the opinions are getting locked in now. So anything that they manage to do between now and November, unless it's a major turnabout from what they're doing, is not really going to enter the consciousness, right? It's in a lot of ways, it's kind of too late for Biden. It's sort of baked in.
Yeah, and I mean, and Republicans still control the House. I mean, they could, they could bring up, and if they keep their coalition together, they could pass some legislation, and if the Senate stalls it like we would expect anything, I mean, the Republicans at least can always say, look, we've been trying to reform this, but the Democrats and and Joe Biden, those guys, they've stopped it, particularly
they make a claim that Republicans voted against more border patrol, right? Which is like Republicans are for more border patrol. I think America is pretty convinced, of that. And the thing about it is like, the Senate won't take it up. The other thing that they should use that tactic on is next year. I mean, this year, I guess we're over the momentum now. We're in the 2024. I haven't written any checks yet, so I haven't put 2023 on a check, but that's probably coming too. Is pass the 13 appropriations bills under regular order in the House, right? If they're not, the Senate doesn't take them up, doesn't act on them, point that finger. It's not us, it's them. We did what we were supposed to do. I think if you do that, they would have a chance to hold on to Congress. Like when, we had a fractious year, and we had, little leadership upheaval and whatnot. But once we got our ducks in a row, here were your 13. This is how Congress should operate, right? But I think it's very important that they get that going right now under regular order, get those bills, because, it's election year. Congress is not going to do much after September, right? Once you get to about the middle of September, they kind of break it up for the year. They'll come back at the end, lame duck, to, do the tax extenders and that kind of thing. But that's I think that's a key strategy if they can do that and get that moved along now. And it's going to reflect Republican priorities, and so those are the kind of things that you negotiate in conference with the Senate. Okay, Senate, pass your bill. Let's have a conference. So I think that's where that should go.
Yeah, I mean that's right, because I kind of forgot about it. I mean, we are coming up against another deadline on whether or not to shut down the government. They got to pass this stuff, right? So this is where Mike Johnson, he's got to get this through. You don't want to shut down the government, because this doesn't work for Republicans. They get tarred with that just about every single time, and he doesn't. He's got to find a way to avoid kind of the whole McCarthy problem, to keep some of the coalition together. I don't know. I mean, you probably have a better handle on that. Can he get through there without a lot of compromise? Or are the Matt Gaetzes of the world, are they satisfied enough that they got McCarthy out? Johnson, they're willing to stick with him for the rest of the year?
I think unless he does something egregious, they'll stick with him for the rest of the year.
And they need to stick with him for no more leadership fights.
Right, no more leadership fights. I do think that they should not eschew the shutdown option quickly, because I think you can make some progress by saying, wait in Mexico for your asylum hearings. That'd make a huge difference, right? And I think they can make Biden sweat a little bit by saying, we're not passing our part of this until you address immigration.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong for the Republicans pushing the Democrats to the brink a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Don't take away that card right away. Otherwise, you lose, your negotiating edge. Make them think that you're going to hold fast and firm, and then you're willing to shut down the government. And because the Republicans have shut down the government in the past, it's not out of character for them to let that happen. But I think go ahead and extract what you can out of the Democrats and make them stand up for some things, and see if you can get some things, and then go ahead and pass, and let's continue operating government, as bad as operating government can be, but you've got to do it.
They're going to refuse to fix it, right? I mean, they're not going to do it. So then you can say, hey, we tried to get them to fix it. We tried everything we could think of, and they don't want to fix it. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He's good.
Do you think they would try to kick the can down the road a little bit more and just fund the government for like another month or two? Or are they really going to try to get this done this month?
That's an interesting approach. You could say, okay, we're going to give you another month, but we need action on immigration. You got a month. We're not shut down. Everything's fine, but you need to address this.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, 2024, lots of ramifications for in 2024 for a lot of things. There's a lot on the table, a lot riding on things out here. I did want to get your opinion about what's going on on the Red Sea with the Houthis, attacking ships, and we've got companies basically rerouting ships. They don't want to go through the Red Sea because of the threat of attack and things like this, which drive up the cost of sending goods and whatever that normally go through there, which could be inflationary to an extent, depending upon how long this takes.
A lot of oil.
Yeah, a lot of oil. That could be problematic. I mean, is there an end to this? I mean, is this a short-term thing by these guys, or are they trying to stir up things and trying to push Israel around, or what's the strategy?
So the Houthis they're not a state actor, right? There's not a country you can go bomb to get back at the Houthis, right? So who is sponsoring this? They don't have any money. Who gives them the money, right? It's probably Iran. So I think what you're looking for is a smoking gun of Iran funding the Houthis, and then at which point you can retaliate against Iran. It's not clear what the Democrats do at that point, because their view of the Middle East has always been that Iran is our friend and not the Arabs and not the Jews, right? And it's a peculiar view. It's not backed by any facts or anything, but that's kind of how they viewed this for a long time. So deal with the mullahs. So, I don't think that's where the deal is to be made. I don't think we should be making a deal about this. I think we should be punishing this as severely as possible, because, it's one of those things, if you allow it to take a foothold, you'll be dealing with it for a long time, right? You need to nip the problem in the bud. But I think that, once you got to figure out who's the state actor that we can actually punish for this. And to me, it's Iran.
Yeah. I want to say something about that, but I also wanted to say one more thing going back to immigration too, which was just kind of on an international level. Because to me, it seems that what we're seeing in large parts, where particularly like in Europe, you're seeing a lot of things, a lot of reaction to, the border policies that they've had, and a lot of people are saying no more, right? And they're electing people to put a stop to this.
Right. That's right.
And so I kind of wonder whether or not that also there'll be a spillover effect, in the sense that, I can't imagine the White House is totally ignoring that at this stage. Now, with regard to all of this stuff that we've discussed so far today, how big a deal, is all this unrest, whether or not you look at, we've had almost 2 years in this whole Ukraine-Russia slog. We've been at for almost 3 months now with, Israel and Hamas. Now we've got the Houthi, thing here in the Red Sea. How much of all of this unrest can play a part, or may play a part, in the 2024 election with Joe Biden? Because it wasn't like that under Donald Trump.
Right. I think that Trump is locked in on that point, zeroed in on, they're not, all this instability in the world, all this upheaval was not happening when he was there. He had the things aligned correctly. He had to deal with the, Northern Triangle countries in Central America to keep their people at home. He had the Mexicans agreeing to guard their southern border. People are like, oh, he didn't get Mexico to pay for the wall. He got Mexico to guard their border, which is better, right? We had the Arabs and the Jews united against the real troublemaker, which is Iran, right? And like, they were flying planes. They were commercial flights between Riyadh and Tel Aviv. People that don't understand, I guess we're old, right? But don't understand like how significant that is. That's unbelievable that happened, right? Those were diplomatic accomplishments of the Trump administration that kept the world at peace and kept the bad guys in their place. And so now what you have is an administration that's just not respected around the world. People say, oh, I say that on the Twitter, and people immediately post something about Biden's more popular in England than Trump was. That's not the point, right? The point is, will they, or it's not really like, it's not miscongeniality contest. It's kind of, about fear, right? I think they look at Trump and they're like, there's no telling what that guy will do, so I better not mess with it, right? And so they see like Soleimani, which tells them that no matter who you are, how well protected you think you are, you can be taken out, right? We will get you, right? Wherever you are on the earth. So I think that told a lot of them, you better behave, right? And, the chef's kiss, of course, was when that happened, when he got the report of that happened, he was having cake at Mar-a-Lago with Xi Jinping, right? So, yeah, I just got this report that we killed that Soleimani guy, and you can see Xi going, whoa, right? So now Xi is in some trouble too. So, China's doing whatever it wants to do. And now that he has political problems, they've sized up Biden, that they know he can be rolled. And so, if it becomes convenient for him to attack Taiwan or do whatever he needs to do to strengthen his own position, we won't really be able to stop him from doing it.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about China because, in my reading, in the Wall Street Journal in particular, the stories that they're reporting on, and this is generally Wall Street Journal is generally will report on economic issues, right? The economic picture in China is just not good.
Not good at all.
And I've always when they were reporting these high GDP numbers and stuff like that, it's like, exactly where are all these numbers coming from to begin with? Because this is China. I mean, if it's a state government agency is reporting it, how much faith do you have that's really true? And I think some of that is coming home to roost, because I think the Journal is showing now that if you can talk to people that are there, the average citizens, there's a lot of problems. I mean, they've had a huge real estate problem. I mean, the way they ran their real estate was just crazy. I mean,
they did. I mean, it's what happens when a government office is in charge of something, right? They built way more than they needed. They built more lavish than they needed, right? So
it looks like I compare a lot of what's happened with like these apartments in these cities in China to like a giant pyramid scheme, because in essence, they were taking the money from these people to pay for the apartments and then using them for other things. But they never took in, they never actually allocated the money to actually build the entire complex to the finish, right? So they ran out of money. It's like, how did you run out of money? Because you had, it was a scheme, was never meant to really be.
Right. And, little publicized thing, but like when Xi Jinping was in California earlier this year, he was there, I guess, the Chinese New Year or something. There was some kind of summit they had. Remember, they cleaned the streets. They got all the poop and everything off. One of the things he did in that thing was he asked Biden for money. He asked for Biden for nearly $1 trillion, like about $970 billion or something like that. And, it's like, why? Yeah, that's right. They have. Well, they kind of have to, don't they? But he's asking. They're asking us for money. So you think, okay, that gives us some leverage over them, right? But I mean, who holds all those U.S. bonds of our debt?
Yeah,
sort of them, right? So I mean, at some point, do they just say, "Oh, we just want to cash in our bonds"? They have the power to sink us. To really plunge us into a worse problem than what George Bush dealt with in 2008. So, I don't know. It's a tricky situation. And, when I heard that, they had asked us for money, your first thought is, heck no, right? But then you start thinking about it. It's like the way to manage this may be to give them a little money, right? We can print it and no one cares. Obviously, we don't have a consensus to worry about debt yet in our country. We will soon. It's about to hit us, but so far we really don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on China because it's like, when China was first open to business, all the things that happened, Western companies poured into there, and and it's been very good for a lot of our American corporations they've thrived. They've built a big book of business in China. But Xi, I mean, he's been throttling back on all this kind of openness and this capitalism. He's cracked down on the Chinese companies, some of the most successful companies. He's throttled them back, and so then that makes the Western companies are like, we really don't know where this is going and whether we should be investing in this. And it does trickle down to the workers. I mean, they still have there's still a lot of people who live in China. I mean, they've got a huge population, right? And so now you have people who can't find work. They leave the country to go to the city and they still can't find work. And even the young people are getting discouraged about things. I mean, I think it was the Journal the other day story is that what's one of the most popular, where do young people congregate? They go to the libraries in these cities. They're not even telling their parents that they don't have a job anymore. They go there, they go to the library, and they spend the entire day there surfing social media or doing other things, maybe sending out some resumes, but they basically put in a day so that their relatives think that they actually are still doing something. But there's this huge unemployment problem. So, he's looking at a lot of trouble there, a lot of their growth. He's responsible for actually, putting a nail into it, right? I mean, he's kind of turned back the clock, but then as a result of that, he's the economic fortunes of China have also changed as a result of that. Yeah, is he looking for money? Yeah, I'm not going to be overly surprised if he's looking for money now, because he's been killing his golden goose, trying to clean a few things up, and maybe gone a little bit too far. But maybe I'm kind of thinking like, if he's got all these problems, is it enough of a distraction so he's not going to focus on a lot of other stuff where it could be really damaging?
Right. It could be keeping him in his box that he's in bad shape.
Yeah.
The thing you have to remember about China is you hear about 2 or 3% of the people are involved in agriculture. About 2%, 2.5% of Americans feed everybody else, right? In China, up to about 30, 40 years ago, it was over 50%, right? You're still like oxes plowing fields and stuff, right? So, but that's changed, and it changed really rapidly, right? It became an urban population more like us. The number of people, the percentage of people involved in food production now is below 20, right? So that's a big, you're talking about 25% or so of the population pouring into the cities looking for a job, right? And it's a state managed economy. So you don't have the dynamic growth that could say, hey, here's how I could make a buck with a bunch of cheap labor, right? You don't have that entrepreneur out there because the state controls the economy. So at the moment they're it's sort of their progress has become their problem, and they don't have an easy way out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's just that you take that farmland is being converted into these new cities, all these apartment buildings for which, once again, the pyramid scheme, they build them. They took a lot of money from a lot of the early people who wanted to move into these places, and then they left them standing high and dry. They never finished the apartments. People have gotten, apartments without walls and a whole bunch of other things, going on over there. And so then you've taken away a large part of your agricultural land is now gone because you've basically tried to build these big concrete, cities and whatnot, which are flopping.
Right. Because, it's centrally planned. I mean, the reason we have high rises in New York is because, the land got expensive, and that was the way to maximize profit on the land. Right.
Right.
If it didn't make economic sense, it did not happen. Right. So now, in China, it doesn't have to make economic sense. As the government says we need housing, they build housing, but that's not how housing works. And that's not how funding for construction projects work. So, they're sort of a victim of their own ideology.
Yeah. Cause I think, where I think my house, I mean, the two neighborhoods, this one and the one across the street that are basically tied together. I think this was all, kind of parkland of some sort that they were able to sell off and then develop. But, there's a point. I mean, it stayed one way for a long, long time until the economics said it now makes sense to buy the land and then build the houses, sell the houses, stuff like that. So, they're not really built on a whole lot of speculation, right? They know that there's a market demand and there's a need for that for people. As Gaithersburg area grew and grew and grew, you needed more housing. So where are you going to put it? And you find the properties to put it and figure out what the proper mix of residential to commercial to green spaces and everything like that. So you kind of do all that. All right, I want to move on to something we discussed a little bit last week, the follow-up, which is the Harvard president. Voila! In a week's time,
she is gone. So, the internet is lit up with people. Oh, they came for her because she's a black woman, right? And it's like, no, they came for her because she plagiarized. So I think that people who don't function in the world of academia don't understand like the level of sin that is, right? To just be multiple instances of plagiarism from a single scholar, right? That is you are cast out for that sin. You don't get to stay. She does get to stay, by the way. She's still a professor, tenured professor there. She'll still make more than $900,000 a year from them, right? She just has to do a lot less work. But none of that happens without if she could have just given a straight answer to Elaine's Stefanik question in the House about about the attacks on Jews on her campus, and the question was, is it racism? And she's like, well, it depends, and it's like she got cute. The president from Penn got cute, right? They weren't going to give you they weren't going to give in that, these people this is stuff that's against our policies that we're supposed to be doing something about because, they were fine with the Jews getting hurt, right? They didn't really care. So they got caught doing that, and that's what they got in trouble for. They got the pin lady out, immediately when Harvard made the decision to just try to ride this out and keep her. Then people came up with, there have been articles before about plagiarism problems with her, and people just went and looked into it and found it, and it was abundant to a degree that they could not ignore. Harvard cannot prosecute any student or whatever for plagiarism when the president is guilty of plagiarism, right? It's just that whole wheel stops. And so I think that's what happened. They're going to claim that it's for a lot of reasons that it's not, but she absolutely had to go. Now, the other thing that's getting, yeah, that's right. We still have a plagiarist in the White House. We haven't done anything about that. But the other thing is, the campuses are not ready to deal with anti-Semitism, right? No steps have been taken toward that. They've just pilloried the leaders, and the other thing is like, okay, they went after her. The people, they decided they were going to force the issue, and they forced the issue, and they got her out. So, you have to stop and think, like, is that, do we want to, it's sort of almost like mob, not mob rule, but mob prosecution. So, is that what we want? And, it worked in sort of the conservatives' favor this time. We got rid of somebody who was an ideologue of the left, who was apparently there because of her ideology. But you have to consider what happened here too.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we talked about this last week. So now she's gone because we talked last week. By last week we're talking about McGill from University of Pennsylvania who resigned. So now we've got this one. So Bill Ackman, who's been very
involved in all this, yeah,
liberal guy, big investor, very well known on Wall Street. So he tweeted after that. It's like, he's not done. He's like, et tu, Sally. So he's still waiting for Sally Kornbluth from MIT to go. Though I still think that your thinking on this was more in line, which is just that I don't know that I don't see where that's going to happen. It seems it's a different dynamic there at MIT than it was at UPenn and Harvard.
Right, and if you go back and look at her answer, she didn't try to be cute, right? Yeah. What she said was basically, if A equal B and B equals C, then A equals C. It's not the inspiring, smackdown of hatred that you want, but she's a math school, right? She gave a math answer. So, I don't know that, like, I think if you actually compare the answers, hers is at a different level in terms of vituperation and so forth than the others.
That's right. All right. Then we'll move on to another topic, which is Donald Trump. A federal judge has thrown out most of the civil counts relating to the January 6th lawsuits, and so that that's a good thing. I mean, I guess part of this is to say that Officer Sicknick died of natural causes or something like that, right? I think that's what the report was. So, this is good for Trump. I don't know that was necessarily ever in doubt that this stuff, those counts were probably not going to hold up, but anytime Trump wins in court, it definitely gives him a boost and a positive. He's benefiting from all the lawsuits anyway, it seems.
Right. It's almost whatever you do to him helps him.
Yeah,
there's also a big court decision down in Georgia yesterday, the True the Vote.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So they challenged. They wanted to challenge signatures, right? Vote signatures, right? And the allegation is that there are a lot of ballots in Georgia that were supposed to be mailed in, but they weren't folded, right? So they don't ever put that piece of paper in an envelope. You can tell if a piece of paper has been folded, right? And the ovals in them were so perfect that they were not made by a human. They were made by a machine. Okay. So they wanted to look at those ballots and so forth, and they were told no, they didn't have any right to. And a judge ruled that you can challenge signatures and legitimize what they were doing, which was a really potent way of showing election fraud.
Yeah, and just one quick thing, did I see something on election fraud in terms of, was it in Louisiana? sheriff's race. There's going to be a new race. The court invalidated like 11 votes or something like that.
Okay, so that's my home parish, Caddo Parish Sheriff, and the election result was one of the Democrat won by 1 vote. Okay, and then they did a recount, and each candidate got 3 more votes. So the Democrats still won by 1 vote. Then they found 11 votes that they can't tell the origin of. So now they have to do the election over. So the signs are still up, right? Still trying to get a sheriff.
So crystal ball, who wins the election, the Republican or the Democrat, you think?
I think the Democrat. I think it's really interesting because like Shreveport has been majority Democrat for probably 20 years, maybe 25 years. Black population passed the white population about then, and they voted Democrat. Right, Democrats were able to win. They've now elected the mayor. Current mayor is a Republican, white guy from the whitest neighborhood in the city. Oh, that's what. Okay, John's there, so he knows. So they've kind of said, okay, and part of it was his opponent was involved in some corruption, had some corruption problems, right? And so the Republican was able to win. So, I mean, it's sort of like, a certain level of incompetence will get you fired in politics, no matter what color you are. That's a big thing for America. It's like, let's quit voting race. Republicans have done a better job at Democrats. You cannot deny it, of putting race behind them as an electoral factor. They're quite willing to vote for people of any color who espouse the right ideas. And then that's really, Democrats try to slice and dice this, but Republicans are just willing to get behind the candidate who favors their views and not criticize people over that aspect of it. So the parish, though, it's unclear where the parish stands. This election probably tells you exactly how close that is, because the parish is, there's much more to Caddo Parish than Shreveport. So it's not a whole lot population wise, but space wise it is. So it's interesting, how close it is.
Okay. Well, we've got give you about a minute and a half to wrap it up.
So let me look at the list here to make sure there's nothing on here that I didn't. Don't know what Mike DeWine was thinking. That seemed like an unforced error. He vetoed a bill that would have outlawed trans surgery for minors. Let's see. Biden's. You have here Biden's terrible poll numbers. Some of them are not so bad. There's even been a little uptick. Rasmussen still has him at like 46. Election day 2020. Trump went from 48 to 45 and lost. I'm not sure why Ramaswamy is messing with Steve King. Why? I guess he's saying, I'm not going to win, so I'm not going to follow the rules. So, and I really don't care what you think of the rules. I think that we are lined up for a great college football championship game on Monday night. I know in my house we will be hollering for the Huskies. That's where Lori went to school. So, but that should be a really good game.
All right. Well, good for that. And then rest in peace to Cale Yarborough. I mean, just great racer from my younger days and everything like that. You kind of forget about these guys who've retired and haven't raced for a long time, but we continue to lose good people along the way. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us again this morning. Hope you please as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. God bless America, and we will be back next week as we move closer to the Iowa caucuses. See you then.